Hello, this is great. What a great audience.
Hello, it's great to be here. It's my first South by Southwest.
This is your first, really?
Yeah.
Wow, and you have family nearby, right?
I have family nearby. They're probably here in the audience.
Fantastic. All right, so this is Susan. She is the CEO of YouTube. She's been the CEO of YouTube for 4 years, as you probably all know. And what I find most striking about that is it means when you go through power rankings of the most important people in advertising, entertainment, and technology, which are like the 3 most male-dominated industries outside of the NFL, she's right there at the very top. So it is wonderful to have you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask her questions for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to go to Q&A. If you go to slido.com, you can put in your questions. You can also vote up other people's questions in the audience, and we'll go to those for the last 15, 20 minutes of the interview. So let's get cracking.
All right, great.
All right, so you have had a crazy year.
Yes.
You had a crazy year and a half. All the social media companies have had a crazy year and a half. Tell me about your evolution and your perception of what YouTube is as a platform over the last year and a half as you've had story after story and crisis and response, congressional investigations, as all that's going on. How has your kind of philosophy of what YouTube is changed?
Well, YouTube started out with the tagline, broadcast yourself. And we modified it a little bit when I came to YouTube. We started talking about different freedoms that we believed in. Freedom of expression, freedom of information, freedom of opportunity. And I think what this year has really shown is that sometimes those freedoms are in conflict with each other.
Yep.
And being a mission-driven organization with those freedoms has actually really helped us work through a lot of these different issues. And so, our goal with YouTube is really to be the next generation platform, to be able to deliver video, distribute video globally, do so with the latest technology, with the broadest set of content. And one of the things that I've actually been thinking about recently is we're really more like a library in many ways. Because of the sheer amount of video that we have and the ability for people to learn and to look up any kind of information, learn about it. But I think what this year has really taught me is how important it is for us to be able to get that right, to be able to deliver the right information to people at the right time. Now, that's always been Google's mission. That's what Google was founded on. And this year has shown that it can be hard. But it's so important to do that, and if we really focus, we can get it done.
So you're a very well-funded library with a lot of protesters and fires in the back.
Well, I think if you look actually, so I've been reading more about libraries over time, which has been really fascinating for me. So my grandmother was actually a library, Sxsw Wojcicki. She was a librarian at the Library of Congress during the Cold War. She headed the Slavic department. And I can't imagine that it was an easy time to figure out what books you actually hold during the Cold War in the Slavic department. And there have always been controversies if you look back at libraries. I mean, libraries celebrate the banned books. They have banned book week. And so there has always been, in the history of information, some set of information that people think other people shouldn't have. And if you look at libraries, they actually have this Bill of Rights, and those Bill of Rights correspond a lot with our freedoms. The ability that you should be able to offer information to everybody, no matter what their background is, and that you should be able to distribute information regardless of what that information is about as broadly as possible, to enable the largest set of voices to be heard to the largest audience.
So that's a very, well, let's talk about, because that's a very sort of pro-free speech, maximize the amount of information available, but a lot of the tension around YouTube is actually when that becomes in tension with accurate information, right? So more the equivalent of a library that has a book that has something false in it. So let's talk a little bit about misinformation and how you think about that. So when the freedom to express something and freedom of speech come in conflict with the desire to have your readers be accurately, your viewers accurately informed.
Yeah, so of course, this has been a year of fake news and of misinformation, and we have seen the importance to be able to deliver information to our users accurately. And in fact, it was about a year ago that we had discussions internally, and there was a lot of stuff happening in the world a year ago, And we said, look, people are coming to our homepage, and if we are just showing them videos of gaming or music, and something really significant has happened in the world, and we are not showing it to them, then in many ways we're missing this opportunity to be able to communicate to them about the world. And we had this discussion internally where people said, well, what do the metrics look like? And are people going to watch that? And we really came to the conclusion that it didn't really matter. What mattered was that we had a responsibility to tell people what was happening in the world. So we actually, a year ago, we launched a few things. One of them was this top news shelf. So if you go to search, the information that we show at the top is from authoritative sources. And we, again, limit that to authoritative sources, and the results in the search results to be authoritative. And this is just an example here. And if you go back a slide, or friend a slide, wherever it is, we also have that you could, for example, could be in your home feed with news, looking at gaming, music, other information, something major happens in the world, or in your region, and we decide that we're going to show it to you. And again, we limit this to authoritative news at the time.
So obvious question, what is authoritative?
Yes, authoritative. So that's a great question. We also ask this question, how do you define authoritative? So as being part of Google, we work with Google News. Google News has a program where different providers can apply to be part of Google News. And then based on the set of content that is within Google News, we use a different set of algorithms to determine who within that we consider authoritative. And then based on that, we use those news providers in our breaking news shelf and then in our home feed.
And what goes into those algorithms?
A variety of different factors.
I know you can't reveal all of them because then it would be easy to game them, but what are some of the factors that you consider when deciding whether something is authoritative or not?
Well, we don't release what all of those different factors are, but there could be lots of different things that could go into it. And I mean, again, I'm just gonna, and again, these are usually complicated algorithms. Like when I actually ask for our algorithm, I usually get a long formula back that has lots and lots of different coefficients, and changing those coefficients matter, as well as the factors that are underlying it. But there are lots of things you could look at. Like you could look at the number of awards that they have won, like journalistic awards. You could look at the amount of traffic that they have. You could, there are various ways that you could, the amount of people committed to journalistic writing. So I'm giving out a few there, but we look at a number of those, and then from that determine, and it's a pretty broad set. Our goal is to make that fair and accurate.
And it's super complicated because you don't want to over-bias against established places and make it harder for a new place to come up. I mean, this is one of the issues. Facebook has started evaluating places on how trustworthy they are and giving out surveys. And one of the obvious problems, if you give a survey out and you ask, is that trustworthy, and they've never heard of it, they won't say yes. And then it makes it harder for a startup journalistic entity. YouTube is, of course, the place where people start. So it's tricky.
It is tricky. It is tricky.
All right.
There are many factors here to consider at play. But I think the other thing that we want to make sure is that, if there's something that's happening in the world and there's an important news event, we want to be delivering the right set of information. And so we felt that there was responsibility for us to do that and for us to do that well. And so that's why we released that a year ago. But I think what we've seen is it's not really enough, is that there still continues to be a lot of misinformation out there.
So I've heard.
What?
I said, so I've heard.
Yes, so you've heard. And reality is we're not a news organization. We're not there to say, oh, let's fact check this. We don't have people on staff who can say, is the house blue? Is the house green? Right? And so really the best way for us to do that is to be able to look at the publishers, figure out the authoritativeness, the reputation of that publisher. And so that's why we've started using that more. But what we've also seen is that there still continues to be a lot of information or different conspiracy information. Right. And so it's one of the things that we want to announce today that's new, that we haven't done before, and that will be coming soon in the next couple weeks, but I'm showing it here really for the first time, is the idea that when there are videos that are focused around something that's a conspiracy, And we're using a list of well-known internet conspiracies from Wikipedia that we will show as a companion unit next to the video, information from Wikipedia showing that here is information from Wikipedia about this event.
So YouTube will be sending people to text.
We will be providing a companion union of text. Yes, there are many benefits of text. As much as we love video, we also want to make sure that video and text can work together. Yes, you must love text as a writer. So, true?
It's one of my favorite things.
Well, so here we go. Here's a video. Let's see, 5 most believed Apollo landing conspiracies, right? So this is something that's here. There is clear information on the internet about Apollo landings. We can actually surface this as a companion unit. People can still watch the videos, but then they actually have access to additional information, can click off and can go and see that. And so here's like another one, contrails, chemtrails, right? This idea that the airplanes are spreading chemicals. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
I'm not deep in this particular conspiracy theory, though I do see the phrase chemtrails used a lot.
Well, but the idea is here is that when there is something that we have listed as a popular conspiracy theory, the ability for us to, again, show this companion unit.
So the way that you'll identify that something is a popular conspiracy theory is by looking at Wikipedia's list of popular conspiracy theories, or you have like an in-house conspiracy theory team that evaluates. And how does somebody in the audience apply to be on that team? Because that sounds amazing.
Well, we're just going to be releasing this for the first time in a couple of weeks. And our goal is to start with the list of internet conspiracies listed on the internet where there is a lot of active discussion on YouTube. So that would be the first place to start. But I think what I like about this unit is it's actually pretty extensible for you to be able to choose a video where there's a question about information and show alternative sources for you as a user to be able to look at and to be able to research other areas as well.
OK, let's shift into something that came up this weekend. There's a piece by a woman named Sxsw who wrote in the New York Times about what she called the radicalization on YouTube. And her theory is that, talking with an ex-YouTube engineer, if you start to watch YouTube videos about running, you'll eventually be led to ultramarathons. If you start to watch videos about vegetarianism, you'll be led to videos about veganism. If you start to watch videos about politics, you'll eventually be led to videos about chemtrails. So, or maybe not exactly that, but is she right? And if she's right, is that wrong? And she says very clearly in her piece that she doesn't think there's a conspiracy. YouTube's not trying to make us all ultramarathoners. It's just that that's what people seem most interested in, and that's the way the algorithm works.
We designed our recommendation system so that with a couple different components in mind. So one of them is that if you're looking at one set of information or you're enjoying music, or here at South by Southwest, you're listening to one artist, that we actually show you related songs, related artists, something that's related to what you're watching.
Yep.
Same concept with, say you're doing crafts, you've done one craft, here's a few more crafts associated with that. So that's one principle that we have used, and I think she alludes to that more from like a radicalization standpoint, but there is definitely that we are showing you a lot more content within that genre that you're currently looking. But then there's actually the second category in ways that we think about our recommendations, which is about diversity. And I've actually heard our engineers talk about it like you're a chef going to a table where we sit and you're providing a buffet. We don't know what you necessarily always want. Like maybe you want to have the salad, but maybe you want to have the meat, and if so, here are a number of different options. And so I think there's both the consistency of keeping within the genre, but we also want to know about you and other things that you're interested in, and keeping that diversity there. But I think that some of the challenges come up and were pointed out in this article is, I think particularly when it comes more to news or to politics, the concern about sort of seeing just within your own area. And I think that's definitely an area where there's an opportunity. We definitely see there's an opportunity for us to figure out like how can we continue to diversify the content that you're seeing, continue to improve the recommendations, rely on the authoritativeness also of the publishers. And so there are many things that we're doing to continue to improve how our recommendations work.
So let's assume that Zeynep's hypothesis is true. And let's assume that there were a way to not have that happen, to not have people become more radicalized in their political views, to not have people turn into ultramarathoners, to not have people eventually led down a path to chemtrails. But making those changes would lose you money. How do you decide whether to make those changes or not? Because Zeynep's hypothesis is that the reason this happens is that because basically YouTube makes money from the amount of time people spend. It's not that simple, right? Because you have different CPMs in different categories, but it's what people have shown their interest to be in. And so you get more time with the user if you do this, if you ultimately take them one step further, one step further, one step further. And so if you were to make a change that have people spend less time, in general, it would probably lead to less advertising revenue for the platform.
Yeah. I mean, look, when we make changes to recommendations, we're not factoring in there's nowhere in our formula the concept of this is the business output that comes with the change in the recommendations. But what we do want to do when we make recommendations is we want to do the right thing for the user. Okay, that's by far above anything else the guiding principle. Now, doing the right thing for the user, that's easy to say and actually hard to do. Like, what does the user really want to do, and what should we do? And just if we were to think about kind of how we've thought about like, well, what metrics should we use associated with doing the right thing for the user? When we first started, we looked at clicks. Like, is the user clicking on the video? And then we realized like that's not great because there's a bunch of clickbait. That's not a good solution. So then we thought maybe we should do number of views, which is actually similar to clicks, and we quickly discarded that afterwards. We started using watch time because we started saying, well, watch time means that the user has actually engaged with this video at this point. And then even though watch time I think was very valuable, we also expanded it to include our daily number of users coming to our site so we can get more users. But we also realized that it's possible for users to watch a video, engage, but not be satisfied with the video. And I have compared this to junk food. Like, you go somewhere and you eat a bunch of donuts, which I love, but afterwards, like, you might not feel like that was have been a great idea, that you just ate all those donuts. And so we started doing surveys. We started much better understanding our users. We included satisfaction. And there was actually a very clear case that we had where we had a bunch of content that was very clickbaity. It was coming up in our system. We built a classifier, which is a machine learning way to identify it, and to make sure that that we were being careful about how we recommended it. And what we actually saw is that our users were a lot happier. And this, initially you could argue like, oh, were we going to lose some kind of positive user metrics? But no, we were really happy. And what we saw is that our users actually were happier and coming back to us more when we removed this content. And so I think the focus, if you were, to look at the article and try to figure out how to criticize it and how we could do better, the question is like, well, what are the metrics that we should be optimizing on in the future in addition to the satisfaction of the users? And one of the things,
But what if the satisfaction of the users is optimized by radicalized content? Then what do you do?
Well, yeah.
Like, where does morality come in your own sense of actually we just shouldn't send them down that path?
I think if somebody is a vegetarian, I think I would make it, first of all, I have two answers for you, okay? So first of all, what we're starting to do is to build in not just satisfaction, which is where we are right now. We were a year ago. We've been building in is this concept also of responsibility, and how to build that responsibility into our recommendation system. And that could take we're still in the process of really figuring out exactly what that means, but that could be a variety of different factors that we look at, from like authoritativeness of the publisher, diversity of the content, like educational value. There could be a whole bunch of different ways, but it's clearly difficult and complicated. And I think the other way we look at that is we say, look, like if people are moving from being like a vegetarian to a vegan, does that really matter? Or, I mean, also ultra marathoner. I mean, look, ultra marathons are great. I mean, like, who else are you going to recommend it to? You're not going to, you're going to recommend it to someone who's a marathoner, realistically, because like the people who are going to go from, people are not going to go from like the 1K to the ultra marathon, right? So, so some of those might make sense, but I think where we do think, it does really make sense is really, and where the value for us to invest in first is really understanding the news and the politics and how to make sure that that area is one where we're showing a diversity of content and making sure that we're showing the authoritative sources.
Well, going back to the food analogy, because I think it maybe makes a useful analogy for politics.
Sure.
What if it wasn't vegetarianism to veganism, but it was eating cookies to eating donuts to eating ever more extreme unhealthy foods? Like, do you then, it's fine for somebody to be vegetarian or vegan or to be an ultramarathon, like, but where does your sense of like, wait, that's not what people should be doing, and we're leading people down that path, where does that kick in?
Well, so in general, we don't want it to be necessarily us saying like, we don't think people should be eating donuts, right?
People should eat donuts.
I mean, look, there's a place for donuts. Again, but it's regardless, it's not our place to be doing that.
Right.
And that's why we started using the surveys and the satisfaction that we got back from the users. And so our goal is really to think about how do we build a systematic, scalable way where we're getting feedback from our users, figuring that out, and based on that, then building an algorithmic system to be able to enforce that. And what we saw from our users is they were saying they were not satisfied after they saw this clickbaity content.
Right.
And so, again, to use your example of like, we keep telling people to go eat more and different kinds of junk food. Like, I think at some point we're going to see that in the survey results that users are saying, some might be okay, but too much is not okay from a satisfaction standpoint or from a responsibility standpoint.
All right, so you've just hired 10,000 people to help with some of these issues.
Well, we're in the process of hiring 10,000 people.
Even for Google, it takes a couple weeks to hire 10,000 people, right?
Yes.
What is the balance between what the humans will do and what the machines will do? How does it work right now? What are tasks that are appropriate for humans? When we're talking about moderation and filtration, how much of them, what's appropriate for humans and what's appropriate for machines?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of rare for Google. Like, we're going more and more towards AI at Google, and 10,000 people is a lot of people.
Yeah, 10,000 people is a lot of people, but we do need those people. So maybe what I can do is I can talk a little bit about an example and then show you how we need them. And both of them are very essential. So about a year ago, too, we started working on making sure that we were removing violent extremism content. And what we started doing for the first time last year was we started using machines to find this content. So we built a classifier to identify the content. And lo and behold, the machines found a lot more content than our humans had found. So traditionally, we have humans, they flag content, it goes to a review system, we identify it, make a decision, and take it down. But once we started doing this machine classifier, the machines were finding a lot more classifiers.
And they're looking for like abuse, jihadism?
There could be a whole set of content that violates our policies. And so, but once they started finding this content, we're like, wow, we need people to review this. And so those people start reviewing the content to make sure, is this content violating the policies or not? Then we actually start looking also like, well, what are the machines doing? Did the machines do a good job? And so when the machines don't do a good job and the humans can say that, then we can say, you know what, let's change this back and have the humans and have the machines let's change the algorithm based on what the humans just learned and the data. So the what's actually removed and what's actually good or stays in the policy is not violating any policies will then get fed back to the machines so the machines can get smarter.
So the humans are training the machines who will eventually replace all the humans.
Well, I think we'll always need
I'm not saying
humans.
that's bad, I'm just saying that's...
No, because I think we'll always need humans. So even right now, so just in the violent extremism, we now remove 98% of the content with machines. But we need humans to review it and for them to make sure that that's being done correctly. And the other place we really need humans are the experts, the people who can say, like, we understand what is happening here. We're an expert in this area. We can tell you how your policy should be written, the kind of content that you should look for.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about comments, because that's a place where there's interesting balance. So Jigsaw, part of Google, has developed software to identify toxicity in comments and determine whether this is a toxic comment or not a toxic comment. Instagram has done something similar, where they, using the same process of humans training machines, have identified what is a nice comment and what is an unnice comment. Instagram has decided to optimize for nice comments. What is your philosophy on how to sort comments and how to use the new technology to sort of do sentiment analysis in comments?
Yeah. Well, the first thing we've been focused on with comments is making sure that we're removing comments that are that have inappropriate terms that we think are harassing in some way, and we have the philosophy that what we do is we actually queue them for the creator to review and to decide, do they want to have these comments on their site or not? And so again, we are using machines so that the creator can make that decision a lot faster. And we have seen a drop in the number of flagged comments.
And they're just identifying hateful comments that violate. They're not, do you optimize for identifying really smart comments?
Well, so we're also introducing ranking into our system, to the idea to understand, is this comments that people have voted up, voted down, maybe other comments that they have done have been voted up, voted down. And so we have introduced a lot more of the ranking to try to surface at the top the comments that we think will be most relevant and useful for our users.
And do you think in the future, as the technology to analyze sentences, which we didn't have 2 years ago, like the capacity to understand what a sentence means, as that changes, how do you think comments will be sorted in 5 years on YouTube?
I would, first of all, comments are an important part of the YouTube experience because it's the way that the creator and the fans are mostly speaking to each other. And there's a whole culture, like my first comment, and some creators do things like they send cookies to the first people who comment, or like some kind of logo gift. So there's a whole culture around it, and so if you think about, like, this is how the fan and the creator are communicating together, how can you make them a whole lot better? And I have a lot of thoughts about that. Unfortunately, like, I'd say we're still in the basics of the ranking, the filtering out the inappropriate comments, but I would really like comments to be much more time-based, for example, to be able to say, like, for example, if someone's watching this video, they could be like, well, this part was really boring, but this part was really exciting, and I have a lot to say about what Nick and Susan said at minute 12. And so the idea that you actually, and you see that in the comments where people will actually harness on a specific moment in time. I think the idea that which we're actually working on, and we have prototypes of, that we actually scan all the comments, and then we can say, here are the 10 different topics that were discussed here. You only care about topic X, here, go here and see all the comments that we're just discussing about that. So I think we can get a whole lot better with comments. It's just going to take some time.
And it's text. It's possible to
So we actually believe text is
very important.
Let's
talk a little bit about your education videos, since that's a huge part of YouTube. And some of the same issues of trustworthiness come in. So let's say you have an education video. Is there any system you have for evaluating? And let's say it's a video about, like, I don't know, how to vacuum your carpet, right? Or how to fix your blinds. Is there any system you have for identifying whether it's actually good advice or bad advice?
Well, we're definitely doing a lot in education. And
there's like
we do a billion views.
Yeah.
We do 1 billion views a day of educational content, and whenever I meet people on the street or whoever they are, they're like a politician or they're just like someone that I met, who's at the restaurant where I am, for example. Everybody has a YouTube story of like what they learned using YouTube, how they fixed something, they did the bow tie, they fixed their washing machine, they fixed their car, they learned a new sport. And we have a lot of great examples there. But I think in terms of, the quality of the information, really what we want to do is, there's always the view counts and the absolute numbers on that. But I think you're kind of asking, like, how do you think about it being authoritative? How do you think about it being accurate?
Right.
And at the end of the day, that probably has to come through some kind of reputation system. And understanding the publisher, understanding the feedback, understanding the comments that are there as well. Is it linked to other sites that we know are authoritative?
Do you use those? I don't know. So like I was teaching my kid how to throw a football, right? So we looked up YouTube, but the best way to hold a football when you're throwing it. And there's one with, I don't know, 600,000 views. You click on that. But that may just be because it has a lot of views, so it's risen to the top in the algorithm. Is there any way in the future that you will have either humans or machines that really do analyze and say, this is the way Nick should teach his kid how to throw a football?
I mean, I would hope that with our systems, as we better understand who's really authoritative, who are the experts, we have an ability to better surface that. And I mean, the good news is that for the most part, like throwing a football or I mean, really, like throwing a football, like that should probably be from a professional. And like there are professional football players on YouTube throwing footballs.
Right.
And so that would be, that's certainly like an understanding of the channel and the expertise. And is it a celebrity who is educating you about it? But I mean, the good news is there's not like a lot of incentive to not do the educational part correctly. Like if you want to learn about how to vacuum, your example of vacuuming the floor, like there are not a lot of people out there who want to say, no, like you actually vacuum in this wrong way. Most people just be like, no, this is how you vacuum. Most people are doing this out of the goodness of their heart. I mean, I'm so thankful for all these creators who have posted and said, no matter what car you have, how old it is, like, and you want to replace a light bulb somewhere in that car, there is a YouTube video telling you how to do that. And that means like somebody worked really hard to create that video and to post it on YouTube.
And you don't want them to get radicalized on how they vacuum. All right, just a reminder, we're going to move to Q&A fairly shortly. You're going to go to slido.com, enter hashtag South by Southwest or hashtag SXSW. Put your questions, they'll pop on my screen. I'll ask Susan. Creators, you obviously have very close relationship with your creators, probably more than any of the other social media platforms. So you fly them events, you do things with them, that's great.
Yeah.
There's been a controversy recently about whether they should be allowed to unionize. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I can't say I'm really, I'm an expert on whether they should unionize or not. I will say, that also creators are not, just from having spoken to lots of different creators have, a broad set of different views. It's a global community. They represent, all the way from, being people who are professional actors, actresses, to, someone who's a mom who's doing this in their spare time. And so I think there is a very broad variety of it. And, I think we do our best to try to provide a really great environment for creators to continue to grow. And, creators are growing. So we had a 40% increase in the number of creators that are earning six-figure incomes. And so, my goal is that if we can have great communication and we can, continue to provide a really compelling experience for them where they can get both, I kind of joke about it, but the fame and the fortune, they can be found by the world and make an income. I think we'll continue to have a good relationship with our creators.
Okay, another business question. So the news just broke yesterday that Facebook is going to bring news into Watch, right? So Facebook will be going into news video. Is this a competitive threat that interests you? Is this a competitive threat that you think is nothing?
News and video?
Yeah. So Facebook, it seems like Facebook is now going into something that you're also going into, and that when news happens about something, you've made an effort to make YouTube a safe, good place where you go and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, our goal has always been to have news videos on our platform. And actually, one of the things that we've done that has been most effective for the news publishers is we have a publisher program where we provide technology to news providers so that they don't actually have to worry about the technology. We provide the technology. So we have over 50 European publishers who are on this program. And our goal is that, look, if we can provide that solution for them, then those videos will be on YouTube. And that's a great way for us to get a lot of news videos on YouTube. In
fact, I'm seeing that somebody in the audience has said Facebook is trying to expand their video platform and they promise to pay the creators better than YouTube.
Yeah, so the way I think about it with creators is like it's our job as a platform to find a way to give them the most promotion, the most number of views, and the highest income. And if someone does that better than us, then yes, like they will go to that other platform or they'll do it in addition to YouTube.
What do you think YouTube is going to be like in 5 years? I mean, the growth over the last 5 years has been crazy. The move of the internet from largely text-based to largely image-based has been crazy. What are some of the things that you think will change in the next 5 years and how it's used and what it looks like and what it does?
I mean, so our goal for YouTube is to, I think it will continue to grow in the way that it has, like have even more more sets of video, even higher quality production, larger, diverse set of content from all over the world. But we're also really investing in the idea of community and communication. And so I'm really hopeful that in the future we have a very deep discussion between the fan creator community, because we always say, look, TV is great, but it's a one-way broadcast. Like what differentiates YouTube is it can be this two-way conversation. And so how can you actually, like if I care about a creator, how can I communicate with them? How can I post my questions to them, have them respond, have them go live, be able to maybe have a sponsorship because I love them so much, get special live sessions, live communication, live or access to special videos with them, be able to communicate with other fans who love the same creator, and then also really invest in the AR, VR. So 5 years from now, like, will that be a really popular platform where you can actually feel like you're there much more, have an even deeper connection? So, I guess the way I think about it is like, look, TV was like this very distant relationship between creators and fans, and now we have a closer connection, and like, will it be even closer in 5 years, where you can have much more dynamic communication, and VR in some ways will make you feel like you're there even closer, and really
have VR
that
conversations
commitment
with your commenters, which
you could
be good or not.
I mean, you could be watching videos all together with your friends, communicate. You could have the creator pop in. I mean, there's all kinds of these really new experiences.
But let's take it back to politics where we started. So when YouTube its first political influence was like, I don't know, I think you probably remember the macaca video, right? Which was like somebody filming George Allen saying something offensive, right? Then we have the 47% video. In fact, we had yesterday that hilarious example of the woman in China like rolling her eyes during the conference. So it was known as like a place where you get kind of funny, surreptitious videos.
Yeah.
In 5 years, is its role in politics going to be still that, just more of it, because we all have smartphones all the time, and it's sort of truth-seeking moments coming out there, or will you have it be more like, I don't know, 60 Minutes type shows, right? As you seem to be going more towards authoritative content. Like, which side will win out, or will both sides, the person with the cell phone or the process show with the like talking heads?
I think it will be both. I mean, I think that's actually the amazing part of the platform is that you don't need to choose. And so I would hope that in 5 years, you have all this mobile video that people have uploaded of different discussions that they've had with candidates, but then you would also have the candidates on the platform as well talking about what their platform is, and you would be using our tools and services for candidates to be communicating with potential voters and asking questions or doing sessions or doing live town halls. And so I think there is an opportunity to both have the candidates using it, as well as just mobile uploads.
All right, mobile uploads, candidates, machines, humans, they'll all be there on YouTube.
It's a big place now, and it's gonna stay big.
All right, here's a good question. Through your career, how did you handle getting respect and leading in male-dominated spaces?
It's funny, I haven't really thought that much about them being male-dominated. I see you making a funny face.
All right.
I didn't really, I think, I feel very lucky. I have really, really enjoyed working at Google. I came from an academic family. My grandmother was this librarian. And so I got to Google, and I thought it was just, I really had a real connection. So the first thing, find something you really love. And then, I think also persistence, I guess, would be another way. I don't give up very easily, and I'm not going to give up on these hard issues. I'm going to work really hard to address them and to find the right solutions for them. And so I think if you just, if you're very knowledgeable, you're passionate, you care about something, and you do not give up, well, no matter where you come from, you're going to have a step ahead.
I think Google would be delighted to hear that, since I think I've read in the press that they've had some issues over gender and racial issues over the past year. But that's wonderful and inspiring accounting of it. Donna, what are you doing to connect small and mid-sized advertisers with relevant, similar-sized creators for mutual benefit?
Hold on, what do you? So we have, I mean, part of the advantage of our, well, it depends upon what the advertisers and the creators want to get out of that relationship. So like, if they just want to advertise, like that beauty of our system is that our advertising system is built with online capabilities, and you can just automatically run on the right advertising. But we also, I see an opportunity for creators and advertisers to connect more as advertisers become like creators. Like, think about it, if like you're a brand, I bought this minivan.
Susan has 5 children.
Yes, I have 5 children. So I bought a minivan. It was actually really interesting. Like, I wanted to research the 8th seat in the minivan. And like, that's not in the brochure, but there are tons of videos of people online showing you how you take the video, take that 8th seat, you put it in, you take it out, whether it works, reviewing it, et cetera. And so like everybody, all brands should have a YouTube channel. They should, they don't need a brochure. I mean, a brochure is nice, but a YouTube channel is a way of really showing your inventory with video, have it be persistent and consistent. And so I guess what I'm saying is advertisers are becoming creators. They're all having channels. And so there's an opportunity for those two to meet. And we have a number of programs to bring in advertisers, to meet with creators, and for them to learn from creators, how do you create compelling content?
Speaking of advertisers, of the various controversies that have swirled around YouTube, it seemed to me, and maybe I'm wrong, that the most high stakes was when Unilever threatened to pull advertising off of YouTube due to association with conspiracy videos. How did you handle that?
Yeah, so in this past year, I mean, one of the challenges we've had has been around brand safety and making sure that advertisers feel like they have the right set of tools and that their brand will be with content that they feel comfortable with. And so this has been a really long process in which we have been working to make sure that we have the right set of content for them. We've made a number of changes in how our ecosystem works. And for example, one of the biggest has just been what kind of content on YouTube is eligible for monetization. It used to be that any content that you came to, you could run an ad on. And we actually just recently changed that to having to have 1,000 subscribers or 4,000 hours of watch time. So we've made a number of changes. But I think the way we responded to it is I'm spending a lot of time talking with advertisers, meeting with advertisers, explaining what our roadmap is. This is what's coming. Hearing their concerns and addressing them so that they feel more comfortable with the advertising and where we're going.
And when you talk about advertising, you talk about advertisers coming up with their own content. It's one of the things that's been very vexing in journalism, right? When you present information and it comes from an advertiser and they tell their story, you need to tag it as advertiser content in some way or another. Do you have philosophies and policies on that so a user knows that if there's a video that says the Honda Odyssey is the greatest car ever, they know it's been funded by Honda?
Yeah, we actually do have a checkbox in the system where they need to disclose that, and then it is provided within the interface for the user.
Not that I have anything against Honda Odysseys. It's a great.
No. Their Honda Odysseys are great cars, and we have some. I wound up buying a Toyota, but I looked very seriously at that Honda Odyssey too. But yes, no, we want to make sure that if there's content that's out there and that it's being done for commercial purposes, that we have an opportunity to be able to mark that. So that is an important point.
All right, we have 116 upvotes on this question from Jason Sheriff. Do you see the rise of large content budgets from Netflix, HBO, et cetera, as a threat to self-produced homemade video or simply a different avenue for expression?
I think the self-produced homemade videos, as they're called here, are in many ways, and like really what we have on YouTube in many ways is a different set of genre than what we have on Netflix or what we have on Amazon. And so if you kind of think about the world and you say, well, look, like shows and movies are really the high production content. That's where you need the $100,000 a minute kind of production. But YouTube has all this content that is incredibly important and valuable. Like the how-to content, the music content, gaming content, vloggers. And so there is this opportunity to have, I think they're different genres and they're not necessarily competitive with each other, but I do think there's a place for both of them.
Do you think at some point in the past YouTube has made strong efforts at creating more Netflix-type content. It had, sort of ill-fated partnership with the publishing industry to create super high-quality video. Will that be something that you plunge hard into again in the future?
What was ill-fated about it?
Well, it got canceled.
No, what do you...
The ones where you came to all the publishers and you said, we'll give you all this money over the next 6 months, create all these high-quality videos, and then the publishers made the videos and nobody watched them, and then the money went away. Remember that? It was back when I was at the New Yorker.
Okay, this was probably before my time.
All right, well, let's move.
So we do have a program where we are producing high-quality content, and we have done 50 different shows. They're part of the YouTube Red series. Some of them have done really well, like we did this 96-hour live stream with Katy Perry, that one of the most interesting shows of the year. We have Ketty, this documentary about cats. We have Gigi Gorgeous that won a Streamy. So we have been producing content. We've really focused it more initially on YouTube creators and YouTube talent, and we just recently started expanding to more traditional types of shows. So like we have Step Up that came out. Yep. We have Cobra Kai that came out. Actually, I think today the trailers came out. I heard they were doing really, really well. So we are expanding in those different areas too. All
right, Ephraim Mahar, as a professional content producer, YouTube is a platform that, in one hand, helped me spread my content, but does a poor job helping me make money, helping me on the financial side.
Mm-hmm. Well, so right now we monetize with 2 ways for our creators. We monetize with ads, and we monetize with the subscription services that we have with Red. And I think the opportunity is like, how do we continue to grow that advertising revenue? We're sharing it with all of our creators, but I think there is more opportunity over time to be able to do that way with ads. And we're actually doing a number of these, what we're calling other monetization projects, like the idea that you're a creator, someone loves your content, can they be your sponsor? Mm-hmm. And we're building that into the YouTube service. And right now we're testing it with a number of different creators. And if you are a sponsor, maybe you have access to specific live streams or to dedicated content. So that would be another way that for some of our creators, they would be getting additional revenue.
This is a really interesting question that's come up a lot. There have been some very descriptive articles about content moderators. How does YouTube plan to improve support for employees who see awful things daily? Right?
Yeah.
So you spend your day searching for child porn and knocking it off YouTube or child abuse.
Yeah. No, this is it's a real issue. And I think, I myself have spent a lot of time looking at this content over the past year, and it is really hard. And, the way we've handled it has been limiting the amount of time that people can do this work, and then also providing wellness services for them.
So the people who work for you they only have to look at abusive videos for how long?
I think it depends on the type of content, but for some of the content, I believe it was 4 hours.
Okay, and then.
That's still a lot. I want to be fair. That's a long time to be looking at that different type of content.
Let me ask you kind of a philosophical question. It seems like, when we started this conversation, one of the first things you said is the value of free speech and the value of free expression. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that one of the biggest shifts in Silicon Valley over the last 3 years has been a kind of move away from that as an absolute. Twitter used to call itself the free speech wing of the free speech party, made it very easy to set up anonymous accounts, then it realized that created all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Facebook has had sort of a similar philosophical change. Instagram is now completely on the side of, we optimize for total free speech, which is very different from we optimize for free speech. Where are you on this debate?
We are on the, first of all, I think this is it's a complicated place, and you figure it out as you go through different challenges. I think what we've seen is, yes, we believe strongly in this value of the freedom of expression, right? There's a lot of motion on this stage.
I think there's a subway running underneath our stage.
So we believe strongly in the freedom of expression, the idea that people should be able to express themselves, but it also ends. If it crosses a line, and so we've had community guidelines. The community guidelines, I think, are pretty. We post them, right? So if something is inciting hate, something's inciting violence, something is promoting self-harm. So we basically have, at that point, we've decided to take down those videos. this year what we actually did that I think was like due to a lot of these discussions about what's the value of free speech is like, how do you handle content that is important to be on the content, but is also, because maybe for some of the educational, documentary, scientific reasons, but is not really so much so that it doesn't really cross the boundaries, but is very close. And that's actually where we came up with this idea that we have content, but we don't actually promote the content. We take away the comments. We take away other features. And so basically, it's on the platform like a hosting. We're like a hosting platform, but we're not promoting it, and it's not monetized.
You kind of vaporize it, but you don't delete it.
Well, I think what we did is we separated the promotion from the hosting. And so it's still there, but it's not necessarily.
So there's a category of content that is so bad you delete it. And then there's a category of content that is pretty bad, but not so bad that you're going to delete it, that you just sort of cut off all the traffic.
And we don't monetize it. And we put an interstitial saying, this is content
and
that can be disagreed by a lot of people or can be offensive to people.
And what are the lines that somebody can cross? You obviously nudity, you've done that since the very beginning, but you also said hatefulness, incitement to violence. What else?
So there's a number of them. Self-harm. I would have to look.
What about falseness? Right?
Impersonation, I was about to say, yeah.
Well, that's going to be a big one in the future.
Yeah.
But what about falseness, right? So, Germany has a new law, and it involves being interpreted in complicated different ways. You're squinting your eyes there about that.
Yeah, they have a number of new laws in Germany.
All right. So one of the new law that went into effect January 1st, which says that if you put content on a social media platform that is hateful, if it's obviously hateful, you have a day to take it off. If it's kind of ambiguously hateful, you have a week to figure out what to do, right? Makes your lawyers presumably extremely busy. Your German lawyers extremely busy. One of the questions that has come up in Germany is whether falseness will be one of the lines you can cross, whether objectively false information, right, can be deleted or can be characterized this way. Do you think, let's leave Germany aside, do you ever think in the United States that false information will be something where you strike it from the platform or put it into that purgatory state where you drive no traffic to it?
I mean, falseness is a really hard value to put as an absolute, because that would require us to determine whether something was true or not. And in general, we don't think we should be the one determining it. That's why we rely on the authoritativeness.
You determine whether something is hateful or whether somebody is nude. I mean, you can make those judgments. I mean, nudity is probably easier than falseness, but.
Well, nudity is usually clear.
Right.
Well, not always.
But hatefulness is complicated.
But it usually is. Hatefulness, I think, is certainly more clear than is something true or is something false? Because falseness requires you to go and to do the research to understand what happened there. I mean, look, I studied history as an undergraduate. That's what history is about, is different interpretations, who was a hero, who different people will say different things happened. And so I think understanding whether something true or false is very hard. And in general, we want our policies to be about things that we can say can be black or white, things that can be easier for us to determine, that is on the policy or it's not. Because if we are just suddenly saying, we believe this to be true, look, is the earth flat? I think most people think it's flat. Think it's round. But there are people out there who think it's flat. And so really, our solution has been much more of let's provide that right information for the users, as opposed to us always being the ones saying, this is the way it is, let's police it that way.
And if you banned everyone who believed the world was flat, I wouldn't be able to watch Celtics videos. Kyrie Irving is one of the most prominent supporters of that view. When is YouTube going to allow global monetization? Africa, from Luaka.
I believe we do monetize in some countries in Africa, and we certainly would like to continue to expand it. And I'm going to say in the next coming years, we'll continue to expand to more countries. And
then sort of another question that comes along with that, you have a lot of values that are sort of embedded into YouTube, and they're values that in some ways come out of Silicon Valley and they come out of the United States. How do you make sure that you're not over-transferring those as you set your policies in other countries?
Well, so one of the things that we've also done in this past year is really reach out and try to speak to a lot of the experts who are out there in the world. So the values are not necessarily just coming from us. So we're like, if you choose a topic, like you choose hate, right? How do we actually meet with the experts in each of those different countries, understand what that point of view is coming from that country, and then implementing it that way? So like I'll say, especially as you get to, there can be many countries where the values can be very different. And so that's actually like our goal has been to work with those independent organizations, get the feedback, and figure out how to incorporate that.
What is a country where you've had like an interesting conflict where you realized, oh wait, I was interpreting it wrong, we should do things differently this way?
I think there've been lots of countries where there've been different we've certainly seen for India, for example, that we need to what we put in trending, we've had to be much more careful about because of different cultural sensitivities. That certainly has been like one issue. So we actually had to make some changes there to be very sensitive to that. I think we follow local law everywhere. So there's different hate laws, for example, in Germany than there are in even other European Western countries. And so we need to be able to implement and recommend those laws separately.
And when does a local law come so in conflict with your core values that then you withdraw? So for example, in Egypt, heading up to their elections, they've banned websites of a whole bunch of outside journalistic organizations. And you can imagine them saying to you that the only places that you can put in your authoritative model are X, Y, and Z that support the government. When do you decide that that goes too far and you're just going to stop operations there?
I think that the challenges have been more when it involves human rights.
Yeah.
And I think the human rights meaning, or political speech. So you have a candidate in a country and the existing government doesn't want that candidate having a YouTube channel. Or you have discrimination against a specific group, like LGBTQ, for example. So those are places where generally we've said we abide by the laws of those countries, and we respect the different religious differences. So there can be some content that's illegal in different countries for religious reasons. But when it comes to the human rights aspect of it, we want to really stay true to who we are as a brand. And the way I've thought about it is like, do we want YouTube to come down for this issue? And I think there are some issues where I'm willing to have YouTube come down, because I don't want to be, as the leader of YouTube, saying like, we gave in on this really hard issue, and as a result of that, this group in this country would no longer had a voice. And so I think there have been some cases where we have been willing to take that hard a stand on it.
Great. All right, so we have time for one last question. Have you considered a subscription model in light of adpocalypse? I think what they mean is you do have a subscription model, but a full subscription model.
Yeah, so we have a subscription model, which is YouTube Red, and our creators do generate, depending upon how much ad revenue they generate, 10, 30%. I've seen it being a very substantial part of the revenue that they're generating. And we're also introducing this sponsorship model where users can agree to sponsor a specific creator. So Nick, you could become a creator. I could decide to sponsor you, pay the $4.99 a month, and then get special updates from you, special icons from you. And so those are two different sponsorship models that we think can be really compelling for our users for our creators and our users on YouTube.
But I think the question is, have you ever thought of just wiping the ads away and saying, if you're going to watch YouTube at all, you have to pay $5 a month?
Well, so YouTube Red is ads free.
But you could do it you could basically make the whole platform YouTube Red.
You can't.
But you could make it impossible to watch it without paying. Or you could put a paywall. You could say, I think this is what the questioner is asking. If you're going to watch more than 3 videos, you have to.
would we want to charge everyone? I don't think the question was asking that.
No.
But anyway, would we charge our users for coming to YouTube? I mean, we're a model about a free service that's advertising supported. So if we were to do that, we would definitely lose a lot of users, which means we'd probably lose the advertising dollars too. So I think it's more about how do we just create an upsell in our models to be able to sort of provide a better advertising service. So like, yes, you get this baseline for free, and then if you want additional content, additional interactions, then you can pay for that.
All right, well, you can have additional interactions with us afterwards, and you won't have to pay for it at all. Thank you very much for coming. Great fun to talk with you. Lots of fun. Enjoy the rest of the night.